most of these boxes are packed in layers. Usually the heavier items are on the bottom, so you would want to make sure, as you unpack them, just carefully do it by layers. So usually you would cut your flowers first about a 1/2 inch, place them in a nice tepid water, get it hardened for a little while, maybe about an hour or so, and so that they're not so flimsy, because you don't really know how long it's been traveling. In this case, I knew it was just packed probably yesterday, so it's really nice. It's really firm. Everything is just wonderful. And let me give you just start off with your container. The container, when you use it, for example, this is just a plastic container, you'll be having a 6-inch, very universal container. You want to use Oasis with it. Now, there are almost like 6 or 7 different types of Oasis on the market. When you get and look for Oasis, it depends on what type of flowers you're going to be using. In this case, most of the stems are kind of thin, small. You don't really need to worry about a real heavy Oasis. You could use even instant Oasis, springtime Oasis, or aquafoam. If you do get Oasis or aquafoam, they're all the same kind of product. They are made with oil. And the instant varieties all have the punctures on the top of it. Now, with Oasis, whenever you soak it, always just drop it into your bucket of water. Don't try to force it in there. Don't try to just shove it in there and hold it down. Just drop it in, let it sink down by itself, 5 to 10 minutes. That way you know that all the particles in that Oasis are fully soaked, and that whatever flower you're going to poke into that Oasis and you're going to add in later will thoroughly be saturated enough. Always remember that one. Give it time to soak. Don't force that portion. Sometimes even the heavier, bigger, if you're going to do big, they have the grande design Oasis, if you're going to do huge projects. I used to let it soak overnight or even 2 days, just to make sure that whatever we're going to put in it will stay there for the week. And they'll be thoroughly saturated. Once you get it in your container, this might be a little bit short, but that's okay. You can either, depending how much product you're going to use in it, you might want to use floral tape, an additional floral tape, to secure it down into the container, but you don't really have to if you're going to just make an arrangement and it's just going to sit there already, on your tape or whatnot. But floral tape too is a great little product. You can just put it on your container, make sure it's dry, and just run your fingers over it to make sure it's actually taped well. And you can even, just puncture it a little bit. And then now this Oasis, no matter what you do, is not going to come out. Especially when you make that arrangement, you put it in the car and go on riding, and like, oh shucks, there went the Oasis came out of your container. Okay, I'm going to start with now looking at what I have here, I'm going to start with this beautiful tropic flowers. And I'm going to make something about yay tall. Now, when you want to try to make an arrangement, you're not, especially when you're just starting from scratch, kind of look at whereabouts you want the top to be, and then gauge it from there, and make sure that when you cut it, especially the first one, you give it a straight across cut. You don't want to really do this one at an angle, especially as your first one, because if you make it at a real, tippy angle, you put it in there and then you lift it up and the thing goes whoop, it'll fall right over. So a straight cut for me on the first one is always makes it secure. You can always do an angle cut on the lower portions or the shorter ones to me. And then again, I'm going to use a little. My next one is a little bigger piece. I'm going to just make sure that where I'm going to want to put it. And if you're not too sure of yourself about cutting flowers, always give it about 1 inch or 2 longer. You can always trim later, but once you cut it, that's it. You have no other play. You can't really play with it. I'm going to put it next to it. I'm not going to create too many, I don't want to create too many extra pukas in my oasis, because once I do that, you're gonna regret it later, because now all these extra holes you have on the oasis, like, oops, you try to put something else in there and your arrangement will really start shifting. I can even use this little extra piece here. This one I'm gonna clip and make it part of the design to make it look like it's part of the arrangement. Let's see now. Let me go on to greening. I'm going to start greening my arrangement before I finish ending up putting some of my focus arrangements. Focus flowers. I'm going to call these my focus flowers. I'll put that in later. Now, tea leaf. Oh, I love tea leaf. Do you know you can do so many darn things with this thing? I am going to, you can split a tea leaf green right down the rib. You know that, right? But try to aim right in that middle of that rib, right down the middle with a knife. And I'm going down all the way so that I can have two nice pieces, two halves with a little bit of rib on each side for bracing. I'm going to use a knife, cut it through to the rib, and then give it another cut right there so that I have something I can puncture it with. I don't need to get extra fern pins or pin to add to this. And what I'm going to do with this is part of my base, my greening. I did that same thing again. Make a little ball up there and green the other side. So, I just started greening my little arrangement. By the way, when you use a knife versus a scissors, you know that you don't try to use the knife like a steak knife. You always just hold it in your hand and you let the knife do the work. Or you can use something like this and just, I'm just pushing the leaf or flower with my other hand, right? You know that, right? And you can, so a sharp knife is wonderful. You can always do all kinds of things with it. I clip through my leaf that way. Then I just hold this and cut it again to puncture. And I'm going to actually, I'm going to put it up this way. Actually, let me do that again. And create something on this side.
I like to use regular scissors.
Yeah, regular scissors is fine because I'm going to use a regular scissors for things like harder stems. But I like the knife for when I have to do a fine kind of cut through, like tea leaves, or when I have to do, when you could do all kinds of things with, for example, with the challah too, right? Because you need a knife just to make a little puncture. You can do a little puncture with the challah, and then you can create a little pane. Let me go do it this way. And I'm gonna trim this challah to make a little point down there. Where did my little hole go? Okay, let me just, I'm gonna retrim this. And then put it this way. Find my little hole there again. Okay, so now I got a little frame up there. And I'm going to now add in some of the smaller flowers, or actually my little proteas. Now, this one too, I cut it at an angle because the stems are real thin, but you could also cut it straight across if you're unsure of yourself. And always cut. Now, this protea, I forgot to mention, this was actually on a stem like this. Try to cut it above, or don't try to stick the oasis right there at the heavy point, because otherwise you're really creating a big hole in your oasis that you don't need. Okay, let me just make some more halves of this tea leaf real quick. And I'm gonna just add some more there. It would be great if I had nails, but I don't have nails today. When I was working every day, my nails were always green. They never were clean. And I'm gonna cover up that oasis where we don't wanna see too much of it. Ooh, these curly greens are cool. Let's go and put them in. They last a long time too. Now I'm going to add in my anthuriums. Anthuriums are easy to cut and add in. The anthuriums, I'm actually going to maybe place it out that way. I'm going to give it a cut. These I'm cutting at an angle, a little tip, so that this one will be easy just to puncture in and leave it on the side. And now I can add all these other little greens. There's some other things you could do with tea leaves, by the way. One of the simplest and a different thing you could do with tea leaf is window painting. Taking a nice leaf and just starting maybe from 1.5 inches above the base, using your fingertip, just go up from the rib on one side. Do it in equal amounts all the way up, and then turn it around. Okay, then do the same wherever your tear was. Use your finger and go up the rib again from the rib. And then just gravity will flow, and then it'll just fall like a window pane. So that you can use too if you want to add it in. I don't really want to add it in, but I'm going to add it in. It's getting kind of messy. But by itself, you can put two together, and they make a nice effect too. I'm just trying to use up my products, and I seem to have quite a bit here, so you could play around with it a lot. Oh, nice, cute, small one. Let me put the small one in the front. In retail, though, we used to make sure that all our oasis was covered in the front and in the back. You know, you shouldn't really be seeing oasis anywhere. So I'm also going to clean up my back and add some greens back there.
If you're going to do an around arrangement, where is it back though?
Right. That's the back, but I thought I'd just do a one-sided for this one. But if you're going to do a round arrangement, you might want to green your container first and then place everything in. But you pretty much will cut all your flowers down doing that. You could use the heliconia if you want to do it on the coming out. We have more of a longer centerpiece. Those work well, and Honolulu works really well just to bring out the arrangement. With the orchids, always make sure that with every flower you use, though, you cut the stem before you put it into the take water. Local dendrobium is one I notice is the flowers are so nice. They pretty much are all the way open up to the bud. The Thailand ones that you see on the dendrobium stems, you have a lot of bud count on the top. And when you make an arrangement with those, you really should make sure that you cut them off first, because I noticed they tend to, after a day or two later, they'll just drop. on your arrangement, they think it's like, what happened, you know? But it's actually the buds, it's been traveling too long, I think, on the Thailand ones, where the buds will just drop before the flowers do, and the flowers. That's why local dendrobium actually will last longer too. And when you arrange with it too, you can even cut them in half if you need to. But when you cut them in half, try to make sure that it don't look like you know, wherever the last tip flower is, you want to trim it off and make sure it's nice and pretty before we put it in. So I used up pretty much everything in my box. And it's it comes out to be a pretty full arrangement. There. So yeah, you're supposed to be able to make this arrangement, and by the time you're done and practice it enough, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Well, in our store, we tell our girls, you know, you got 1 hour to make 5 arrangements, finished, completed. And then even at that, that's kind of slow. But anyway, that's how we used to do it. Thank you.